Hello everyone, I'm Emily and today I'm going to tell you a true story. Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be here, writing one of these posts. I always scrolled past them, thinking, damn, that sucks, but never once did I imagine I'd be the guy typing out my own nightmare. Yet here I am. So, some background: I'm Ethan, 34M, and I've been married to my wife, Jessica, 32F, for 7 years. We've had our ups and downs, sure, but I thought we were solid. I've always known Jess struggled with her mental health, depression, anxiety, and occasional suicidal episodes, but I stood by her. I chose to stand by her. I loved her through it all, even when she lashed out, even when she said things that cut me deep, even when she'd disappear for hours, leaving me frantic. Lately, though, something felt off. Jess has always been a little impulsive, but over the past few months, she became different. More distant, yet somehow more combative. She started dressing up more, going out without telling me where, being glued to her phone, and getting defensive when I asked questions. The sex, when it happened, felt rushed, disconnected. Like I was a chore she was trying to check off her list. I ignored the red flags at first. I told myself she was just going through another rough patch. But deep down, something gnawed at me, whispering that this time was different. And oh boy, was it ever. At first, I tried to rationalize everything. Jess had always been unpredictable, so maybe this was just another phase. But the signs started piling up, and eventually, even I couldn't keep lying to myself. She started going out at odd hours. Before, if she needed space, she'd at least tell me where she was going: her sister's place, the park, sometimes just a drive. But now she'd leave the house without a word, sometimes coming back smelling like a mix of perfume and sweat that wasn't hers. Then there was the phone. She never used to care if I grabbed her phone to check the time or change the music. But suddenly, it was always face down, always on silent, and always locked with a new passcode. One night, I walked into the room, and she practically threw it across the bed to get it out of sight. I laughed it off at the time, but that pit in my stomach grew a little bigger. Her attitude changed, too. She picked fights over nothing. If I asked her how her day was, she'd snap, "Why do you always need to know everything I'm doing?" If I told her she looked nice before going out, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Don't be weird." But the worst part? She stopped looking at me like she used to. There was no warmth in her eyes anymore. Just something cold and distant, like she was already gone, and I was just too stupid to notice. I told myself I was paranoid. That maybe her mental health was just spiraling again. But the truth was, deep down, I knew. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. I can tell you the exact moment my denial shattered. It was a Tuesday night, and Jess had told me she was meeting an old friend from college for drinks. I didn't question it, after all, I wanted to trust her. But something didn't sit right. The way she avoided my eyes when she said it. The way she grabbed her phone and rushed into the bathroom when a notification popped up. The way she left the house in a black dress I'd never seen before, paired with red lipstick she hadn't worn in years. I told myself to stop being crazy. But after she left, I did something I'd never done before in our entire marriage. I checked her iPad. It was linked to her iMessage. She didn't realize that. At first, I felt disgusting, like I was violating her privacy. But that guilt vanished the second I saw the messages. There they were, texts with a guy named Brandon. I didn't know a Brandon. "Brandon, can't wait to see you tonight. You looked so fucking good last time." "Jess, shut up, you're bad." Winking face. "Brandon, not as bad as you. You were so loud in the car, I thought we'd get caught." "Jess, you love it." I stopped breathing. My hands went cold. The messages kept going: details about the hotel they met at last week, jokes about how I was so clueless, a string of "I miss you" texts that made me want to throw up. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just some emotional fling. This was sex. This was sneaking around behind my back, laughing about how blind I was. My chest tightened, and before I even realized what I was doing, I grabbed my keys. I was going to find her. I don't even remember getting into my car. One minute, I was staring at those disgusting texts, and the next, I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind was racing. Was this really happening? Was my wife really doing this to me? I pulled up her location on the iPad. She was at a bar downtown. Not at some cozy little cafe catching up with an old friend. A bar. I drove like a madman, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. A part of me still hoped, maybe there's an explanation, maybe I'm misreading something. But deep down, I knew. When I got to the bar, I parked down the street and walked in, scanning the room like a lunatic. And there she was. Sitting in a dimly lit booth in the back. Leaning into a guy with short blonde hair and a cocky smirk. His hand was on her thigh. Her thigh. My wife's fucking thigh. And then, just to drive the knife in deeper, she tilted her head up and kissed him. I saw red. I stormed over without thinking, my body moving on autopilot. I barely remember what I said, just that my voice was louder than I intended and full of raw, ugly rage. Jess jumped like she'd seen a ghost. The guy Brandon, I assumed, looked me up and down, like I was an inconvenience. Oh, he said. So this is the husband? Like I was some clueless idiot who had finally stumbled into the truth. And Jess? She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She smirked. I expected panic. I expected guilt. I expected something, anything, that showed she gave a damn about what she had just been caught doing. But she just smirked. Like it was funny. Like I was the fool for showing up. Ethan, she said, crossing her arms, as if I was the one embarrassing her. What are you doing here? What was I doing here? I could barely process her words over the roaring in my ears. My hands clenched into fists, and for a second, I thought I might actually hit something, him, the table, the entire fucking wall. But I forced myself to breathe, to speak through my gritted teeth. What the fuck is this, Jess? I spat, motioning between them. She sighed, looking at Brandon like I was some annoying inconvenience. You're making a scene. A scene. I looked around. People were staring, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. But I didn't give a shit. My entire life was imploding right in front of me, and she was acting like I was the problem. Brandon leaned back in his seat, sipping his drink like this was some kind of sitcom. Look, man, he said, maybe we should all just calm down. I ignored him. How long? I demanded, my voice shaking. How fucking long have you been doing this? Jess shrugged. Shrugged. Like I just asked her what she wanted for dinner. A few months, she said casually, like it was no big deal. Does it really matter? I swear to God, I almost blacked out. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Does it really matter? Those 4 words rattled around in my skull, echoing over and over until all I could hear was static. Are you fucking serious right now? I hissed, leaning in closer, trying to search her face for any sign of remorse. Nothing. Just that same smug, detached expression. Brandon, this arrogant piece of shit, sighed and downed the rest of his drink. Look, bro, I didn't know she was married at first, alright? But let's be real, you had to see this coming. I saw red. My fist moved before I even had time to think. 1 second, he was smirking at me, and the next, my knuckles were colliding with his jaw. The sound of it, bone meeting flesh, was the most satisfying thing I'd felt in months. He stumbled back, knocking over his glass, eyes wide with shock. Jess shrieked, shoving me back so hard I nearly lost my balance. What the fuck is wrong with you, Ethan? What's wrong with me? I shouted, chest heaving. Are you fucking kidding me, Jess? You cheated on me for months, lied to my face, and you expect me to just stand here and take it? Brandon groaned, rubbing his jaw, and I hoped it hurt like hell. You're fucking crazy, man. No, I shot back, glaring at him. But I'm done being a doormat. I turned to Jess, heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack open my ribs. You know what? Stay with him. You two deserve each other. For the first time that night, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness, but fear. Like she realized, in that moment, that I was really, finally done. I didn't wait for her response. I turned around and walked out of that bar, fist still shaking, pulse roaring in my ears. I wish I could say I felt free. But the second I got to my car, the weight of it all came crashing down. Thank you very much, see you in the next video.